Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another stream. Continuing with the XT0. And if you've not watched any of the streams previously, then the XT0 is a mashup of a double dragon, where the X comes from, and then the tri-zero, which is where the T comes from. So yeah, XT0. We'll get onto that in a minute. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So on screen, if I point the right direction, you will be seeing some logos pop up. So this build in part has been sponsored by a couple of people. So Fatus is on the screen at the moment, and I'm going to show you what they've sponsored the build with in a second, because last time we streamed I showed you what LDO provided for the build, which hopefully their logo will be coming up in a second. So Cartographer 3D. So although this build is not going to have a Cartographer probe, Richard at Cartographer has kind enough to supply a couple of bits that I needed for the build. So I just wanted to have their logo up there. And maybe we'll do a video about one of their probes later on. So the next logo coming up will be the LDO logo, and I'll show you what they supplied last time. So let me just grab what Fatus have sent over. So if you don't know, I will just switch over to the main camera. If you don't know, the Double Dragon is called the Double Dragon, and I'm only getting this information from the GitHub, which is linked down below, because it had originally 2 Dragon hot ends in. So keeping with that theme, if you want, I reached out to Fatus and see if they would consider sponsoring anything for the build, and they were kind enough to send over 2 Fatus Voron Dragon hot ends. So what they basically are the Dragon hot ends, but with a red heatsink. So I've got one open that I'll show you in a second. I'll just see what else we've got in the box. So we've got these cool, and they're actually pin badges, but they're metal. So I thought they were kind of cool. And there's a few different styles, and it's just yeah, a metal pin badge. So I have to put those somewhere. And of course, no package from Fatus is complete without some stickers. So these little ones actually came in. Zoom a bit. These little ones came in box for the actual hot end. Okay, and then in the actual box is just 2 bigger sticker sheets. So we'll be putting some stickers on to the build once we get to that point. So let's have a look at one of the actual hot ends itself. Sort this box out. Now, which one did I open? I think. Yep. So they're both exactly the same. Because this is obviously an iDEX printer, we needed 2 hot ends. So yeah, it comes really nicely packaged in this like a mirror glossy red and black, and this is like really strong magnetic lid. Then yeah, you've just got the Dragon hot end but with a red heatsink. So I think they'll look really cool this build. So big thank you to Fatus for supporting this project. And then this little baggie is just normal stuff that you'd get. Some Allen keys, some screws for mounting the hot end. There's a nozzle in here as well. Yeah, so we're going to have to get some heaters and some thermistors for those, but that's not a problem. And yeah, really excited to get those in, because my other couple of my other Vorons have got Dragon hot ends in, which have either come in the kit or that I've added in. So they're a really nice product, I think. So I wanted to try and get them involved if I could, and they were happy to do so. So that's got that bit out of the way. So last week, well, not last week, but the last stream, we left it at the point where, although I'd assembled some things, they kind of weren't going to stay assembled for long because I needed to do a few things. So hopefully that's focus for you. Basically, I didn't have all of the hardware I needed, so that had to be swapped out and done. And then I realized that I couldn't actually get this far into the build without having a rear panel or a mid panel. So I decided to cut my own. I've got a laser cutter just off camera. And then I was thinking about what color to use. I didn't really want to have a black panel. The red I had wasn't quite the right shade of red to match the printed parts. So what I basically decided to do was to do it clear. And what I'm also going to do, so basically, because of this arrangement with the fans with the motors at the back, there isn't a lot of room here for most control boards. Now this is going to be having a Mellow Super 8, Super 8 board in, which is a big board and it will not fit in this gap. So I spoke a little bit last time about wanting to have a slim power supply and have that in the back, and then put the other stuff under the deck panel. So that's what I'm doing. So we're going to have a slim, either a Mornsun or a Meanwell power supply in the back. Then I'm hoping there's enough room for the Big Tree Tech 2C, which will go about here, because the full heads are going to have can boards on. They're going to feed back to here, which is a sort of a good distance and a good place to have that placed. And then the plan is to have under the deck, which will again, I'm hoping to do in a clear panel so that you can see the electronics. So the plan is to actually have a kind of inverted electronics mod, if you like, have so that we can get to the electronics from the inside. We just take the panel out. So that's something that I've done on my Trident, and I really like that arrangement. It saves having to move a big printer and put it on its side or to get underneath. So basically, because the way that I'm mounting things, I had to change panels that come with either the Tri-Zero or the Double Dragon, because this is a mix-up, or mash-up I should say. I've just edited the DXF files slightly. So I've actually used a bit of cardboard to start with, just to trial what changes I was going to make. That wasn't significant changes. That basically just involved having to increase this cutout a little bit so that it fit with this modified set of bearings. And then what I also did was just to increase the amount of holes that are available to the extrusion at the back. That means that this bit of DIN rail I can actually move a little bit. I've got a bit of choice about how high that can go. That was fairly simple back panel. And I haven't actually cut the deck panel yet, but what I had to do for this was basically so I could take the Double Dragon deck panel, but then I had to cut out some spaces for where the belts are going to be. And then this should hopefully, if I just put my hand under there, should sit in about there, but be clear. And the electronics are going to be mounted, rid of that, on another DIN rail. It's going to sit basically about here, which you can't see. Basically, it's going to sit within skirts, so it's not going to go lower than the skirt, and it should allow to have the Super 8 and the Pi under the deck, hopefully. If we have to make changes, I have to make some changes, but that's the plan. So today, what I want to do, so basically, as a result of now putting a back panel in and getting the hardware I needed, this has now all been put back into place and tightened down. One thing I did note that I wasn't aware of until I started ordering some hardware and having a look is that basically, if I turn this around, so you can see. So this top, so this is a 2-part frame here. So if this part on the top can actually be attached to the frame with some countersunk screws, and that all of that has to be done before you put the A and B motors in, and you have to have the back panel in. Then you can actually add, so if you weren't going to use this lower part of the bearing here, which I still might not do, you can take this part away, which will take the bearings away, but then you can actually screw the bearings back in because the heat sets are in the top. So you can actually do it without that lower part. So we'll see how that goes, because I think we're going to struggle to do the belts. And we might have to move things around and so we'll see how we go. So for today, what I want to do is finish doing some stuff with the skirts. So put some little base plates go on, and then the feet. And you can see here, these are actually added from last time we streamed. So the skirts that I'm using are a Tri-Zero mod, which I've used on the Double Dragon. So what that meant is that we've got basically about 100mm gap that needs to be filled up because the frame is 100mm wider. So I used the existing CAD and some hidden geometry in the CAD to create some side pieces that basically match up with, let me just grab another part. So this is the part that goes on this side of the screen. So with that in place, it lines up. It looks quite nice. So we fill the gap and have the screen, and it looks really nice from the front. And then for the back, the original one had, so obviously this part wasn't, this middle part, and then there was a logo, Voron logo, on these 2 parts that join in the middle. So I wasn't able to keep the Voron logo at the moment. I've just made basically that 100mm filler piece, and I might play around with it and try and get some logos on there. Voron logo, maybe the Printer for Ants logo. So yeah, I'm working on that basically. So that's fill those gaps. So let's try to think what part we'll start with. I think we'll start with the skirts, and then we'll move on to doing the idlers. Shall I do the idlers first? I think we'll do the idlers first. So again, we need some slight modified parts. I'll just grab what we've got down here. Got the instructions up on my screen. So let's have a look what parts we need. So we'll talk about those in a second. On these parts basically. So make sure I did print to reprint some parts. That should be what we need. So yeah, so these are some modified parts, the idlers, which integrate the bed, the Z-axis adjustment idler. So these will go on the, goes on that side, this one goes on this side. So these will basically go on here. Then the adjustments on the side. So we'll look at those in a second. So we need to basically build these idlers first. So let's get some bearings. So I've also sorted out the screws and everything as well. So it should be a little bit easier and quicker to find the screws we want. So first thing we need to do is get some M35 shims bearings. So 35s. Yep. Shims. So we basically take each of them, put an M35 through the top, do one at a time, and some bearings. Camera slightly so you can see it. Camera on. Make it a little bit easier for you to see. So, got our one shim. Get a few of these out. We put a shim on first, basically a bearing stack. I'm sure at some point I will drop these and do it all again, but another shim on top. Do one at a time. We then need to correspond that with this part. So that should be big part to little part. And this is going through this hole. Like so. Will look something like that. So let's do the other one. 35mm bolt. That through. Put our shim on. So I've actually moved camera setup around today for no other reason than just to be able to get out the door. Because with it set up the way I had it before, basically the camera and the light was all in front of the door. So yeah, I just decided to move it. And so that one goes through there. That through. Okay. So we've built those. Step basically. So this is at a point where we would need to preload some nuts. However, we don't need, so this wants us to preload some nuts in this section here, but we don't need to do that because basically the front belt path would interfere with the original door latches, and we might not be doing the typical door on this anyway. So here's some of these. Right. Okay. There. Move this up a bit. So basically what we need to do is to put those on the front. We're not going to put any nuts. Yeah. So we want this. This one goes on this side. One goes on the other side. What that does mean is using, because we're using these with the integrated D, because we're going to use this integrated D adjustment idler, we actually need to lose this rail stop, and this basically will act as rail stop, so we're not really going to be in any worry about losing the front of the carriage. Take that off. That frees up that space. We have now got a floating nut in there, but that's fine. So I want to get other screw that we're going to need, which is just another 35, because we're going to need to line up the drop nut. This will basically go in the top here. About there. Just there. Okay, so this is going to go here, basically. We'll just start screwing this in a bit. And then we want to put this other one in. So we're going to need to move this drop nut into the right place. Never the easiest thing to do. Okay, we've got it. Yeah, we just tighten these down. Not too tight, obviously. Problem with ball end Allen keys is that they sometimes slip a little, so it's always handy just to have a normal one on hand, just to give it that final little tweak. You don't need to go too tight, so make sure that the bearing runs smooth. Make sure that's flush. Make sure that can go up and down, which it can. Yeah, that's the first one done. We just basically repeat that now for the other side. I'll take this rail stop off. Okay. What I think I might plan to do to get a little bit more progress done on this build, perhaps do midweek streams, probably at evening time for me. That might be sort of more viewable time for people across the world. But no hard plans for that just no set time just yet. Quite in the right place. So just a little bit. Okay, that should be it. Again, make sure we've got movement on the relevant parts. Tighten these. So the bearing stack can move, which it can. That's all flush. So that's basically the front idlers. So it asks for us to put the accent piece color piece. To do that, you should way. So then just asks to make sure that certain idlers line up, and everything does line up, so that's fine. And it's just basically making sure you get so the next step is the z-axis. So obviously ours is a little bit different. So I think this is the point where I will now put the feet on, just so that we can lift it up, so it lifts it up a little bit. So I need to get a few things out. Put that there. So actually we'll do that in a second as well. These are the mounts. Yeah. So these parts basically just a plate. Some have heat sets in, some holes don't. There's a slight recess on the back for an M4 nut. So what I had to do, actually, let me get the feet out. Show you the feet that I'm using. So they're not quite the they're not V0 feet, and they're not. I think these are the old Voron feet, which you might call I think they called them like compressor feet. Basically, the newer ones are more of just a like a hockey puck style foot. So these are the feet I'm using, but I use those feet with the correct hardware go on the skirt, so I had to model up just a very simple part, and I've actually got more in here than I should have, so I probably still got the other iteration in here. So I'll have to see which one is the one I finally settled on, but this was a modified version of a part I found on Printables, and that was for M3 nuts and bolts, or bolts, whereas mine is for M4. I think there's one more in here. There should be anyway. I don't think which ones I up using. Let me get the. I'll explain it. So, got 4 M4 nuts. Oh. I have to put one in just to see if I've got the file I make. Hopefully this won't affect the stream too much by opening up Fusion, but rather check part that I've modified than start using part that we don't need. Not sure where that other foot is. I might have the right ones here. Yeah, so it is these modified ones. Okay. That. So it's these slightly smaller ones. Basically, what all it does, it goes in the bottom of the foot, then sort of comes out the top, and this is just enough to basically fill, because the hole in here is for an M5 bolt, just a very small spacer basically. And what we need to do, lay this back. And then you can see that some places have spaces for, trying to work out what I've got here. So we don't need those ones, I think. So they should go on something like that, where these ones, the front ones, have inserts that we go in. Okay, so find some foolish. I don't really know what size we need for some of these. So I'll find the right size and then let you know. But basically the front feet, the only have 2 mounting holes basically, or mounting points. What we have to make sure is that our screws that we use don't go too far. So these are slightly too. So let's see. So they're an 8. So I reckon we just want a 6. I think some. This one should be working all right. So the front skirts have 2 bolts that go through it and attach to the inserts. And make sure this right length. That should work. And the reason we don't want the bolt here to go through is because the motor obviously will be attached from the inside. So these inserts actually are flush with the body of the motor. So let's get 6. And what we can actually do is attach. Got to make sure that this doesn't. Okay, so what we need to do is attach this first, and this nut will just basically sit in there. That will then attach this to the front. Like this. Get both sides started. Yeah, that's not poking through. Clean that one up. Then we can put this foot on the bottom. Like that. So I'll now do one of the back ones. So the back ones basically have some holes that can be, bolts can go from the top side. That's why this one with the inserts in goes in at the bottom. So we can screw from this side into the 2 inserts and then from the other side into inserts. So we could probably get away with slightly longer ones, but I'll use 6s again. So yeah, these are a modified. These are a mod of a mod. Yes, you want to call it that. Again, these are all linked. Description. These are skirts by Harry Bow. He's got a few different options for screens. Wave share screens or V0 displays or the mini, whatever that code is. So yeah, there's plenty of choice for your screen basically. Could go in here, but not quite. Not about to put the nut in. Oh, that hole is slightly small. Could be okay. Gonna lay this up a bit higher so I can see it. So what I'm going to do is just use a knife, take a little bit of the nut hole out, and it's just because of the orientation when it printed. Take a lot just to make this nut fit basically. Yep. Could be made probably for a certain size nut, which is why we're probably having a little bit of an issue. I don't want to force the nut in because you might then risk splitting the part. So just creeping up on the size, make it fit is fine. Oh, in the actual nut, I can go a bit better. Can't really see what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is basically just taking some material off the printed part. That should be enough. What I'll do is I'll put that nut, I'll put the nut into the printed foot part because that will actually stay in there. It is. Want to stay there now, so there. Okay, no problem. So I'm now just going to put this other plate on basically. So these bolts don't necessarily, doesn't matter if they go through a little bit because there's nothing behind them. We can then put our next foot on. Okay, so that's 2 feet on. Gonna clear the desk. So let's turn it around, see the other two. Lay the on the front. Let me do this one. So this is another rear one. So this will have 2 screws that come in from the top. That will be like that. Millimeter bolts. Nut. We'll see if this one is a little bit easier or if this also needs, yeah, so this needs a little bit shaving off as well. This one is actually slightly it's a different shape. It's not quite just a hex, because this is the side that has the input power on. And this, the bolt doesn't actually doesn't really have any effect on this part, if that makes sense. The bolt actually stays attached to the purple part. So this is just a recess, really. Go a little bit more. I said I would do before, and just put the bolt in so I can handle it a little bit easier. A little bit more, I think. A little bit more. In so I can see what I'm doing a bit better. So the top, because it has other geometry in, it's not easy to trim a bit away. So that should be a little bit more. So before, you don't want it to be so tight that you're putting stress on the printed part. So it might mean that those parts maybe need to be, there we go, need to be a little bit different to CAD. But again, could be for a different size nut, etc. So it goes on here. Up. Okay. Yeah, I will have a look and see what hardware we want for the other two. Hi Scott, how you doing? Going good. I reckon they are going to be 8mm from the back. A little bit of tweaking to get right place. Yeah, 8. Still have a K1 box. Had it nearly 2 weeks. I don't know if I'd better last 2 weeks with having a printer to unbox, but you're a busy man, so I'm gonna undo this one because it's not quite lining up. I'm gonna undo stuff hopefully give me a little bit more adjustment. Is that your second K1? The other one a different model? They're not quite up. Gotta undo them a little bit more. Like, yeah, that seems great, but good to work. But I need to get some Bowden clips for my original, and really keep backing the filament out. There we go. Dropped one. See if I can find it. If I can find it quick. Well, I have base K1, like the max, but why wait for the K2? Yeah. What does the stock K1 do for bed leveling and whatever? So I know there's a few people who use the cartographer probe on the K1s. Bit of pressure on. Those sense. Cool. Screw in. Side goes in, no trouble. So probably just a little slight misalignment. Put back. You can have to look better than the K1. So the way you mount the photographer probe on a K1 involves having to basically have the boards separated and connected via wire rather than them being connected directly together. If you haven't already, it might be worth jumping on the Discord server for the photographer probe, because there's a channel set up for people to basically discuss it. That involves having to route the K1 as well, which probably not a bad thing, to be honest. Okay, last foot. Little spacer in. Been rooted since day one. So what does that tell you? They should have never. I mean, you'll probably hear this from a lot of the more what's the word? From the people who know what they're talking about. But it would be nice if companies didn't feel the need to mess with something that they don't need to. Just put vanilla clipper on there and let people decide what they want to do, basically. There we go. So that's the feet on. That lifts it up a fair amount, but because we then will be putting screen on, we needed that up anyway. So we won't put those on just yet. Okay, so what do we need to do for... I guess we need to put some motors in the front, but what I'll first do is just this part. So this is the rear the belt adjustment. So tighten that up. I will just got maximum. I agree. No reason to lock it down as much as they have. There for clipper. Yeah, couldn't agree more. So right, I'm back off garden. I'll try and pop back. Take care. Okay, thanks for coming along, Scott. So this can go this way round, or someone suggested I could put it this way around to have it a more cleaner look. Personally, I would prefer to have it this way, just for like, yeah, I don't know for what particular reason. I just got to have it that way around, so you can see the adjustment part and the color and whatever. So no particular reason to have it that way around. It's just the way I'm going to put it. So basically that's got your idler part there like you have on the front, then it printed part that goes between the extrusion at the back, and then we've got 2 bolts from the top, 1 on each side. Then there's actually one's inside the printed part, just to give it a bit more rigidity, I guess. So gotta get to those bits. I don't know, the ball end part. Yeah, you can just about get in from the side. They just sort of been hugged up. So yeah, so we need to basically put some motors on the axis now. So let's get those prepared. We've got three more pulleys. Loctite. And the motors I'm going to use today potentially won't be the ones that stay on there. These are just the ones I had laying around. So how do I put this? There is a maximum size depth motor you can use. That doesn't really matter about the front, it's the rear one. Now, because I'm doing the double dragon, and I've got that extended piece at the back that I put in, the printed part, I could theoretically have a much longer motor in the back. You're really only limited on where that hits the back, the printed part of the back. And I think the maximum recommended is around 40 millimeters. So potentially I'm going to swap these smaller ones out for some larger LDO motors down the road, but for today I'm just going to use these ones. So basically what we need to do is get one printed part. So this printed part is for the rear motor. We'll do the rear motor first, and this basically goes where the axis stuff mounted on an original V0. So we can probably mount this first, actually. Best idea. So this needs to probably be some 10 mil, 8 mil. Double check. Yeah, 8 mil probably should be fine for that. And then got two that come up from the bottom. They should be fine, I reckon. So this is a matter of lining up like 4 nuts. So we'll just try and do the front ones first. Those ones should be okay. To basically lay the printer down. I think I already lined those ones up, so should be good if I get bolts out. Just sort of put them in loosely to line everything up first. That is screwing in to the side. Plug them down a little. Suppose we might benefit from washers on these front ones. otherwise we're just basically, we're likely to push the tighten the bolts down too much and go into the printed part. So just use a couple of washers. That's the rear motor mount in. What we can do now is put our pulleys on. So we will do final adjustments on those when we put the belts in, but for the time being, just put these in, and obviously I want to make sure I get them right way round. So double drag up. Try 0. Could open up. I think this way round, so that we've got the maximum, so we can get as close to the motor with the belt as we can, just to see if I put this motor in. Yeah, I think we probably do want to go that way around anyway. So we'll be putting it that way around. So let's get the rub screws out, Loctite on. Have a quick. So get the old trusty Loctite out. Both of those while I'm here. So what I've also done off camera is to, for the Dragon Burner tool heads, I'm obviously going to be having LEDs in them. One tool head will have sequin LEDs and one will have the button LEDs in. And what I've basically done is just soldered those up, because it's not really something I would want to do on stream, just because of, actually it wasn't that easy, because they're, for the sequin LEDs in particular, they're very difficult to. I'm just going to roughly put this in place, and these will probably be adjusted down the line, but just for the time being they're going to go roughly there. But yeah, so I'm going to be using sequin RGB LEDs, one tool head, and then So they basically will fit like that in there. So let's find out what screws we do attach those. All the links to I've tried to do all the mods that I've used. If I've forgotten any, then you'll hopefully tell me. So M3x20, what we want. Judge. No, I don't. Yeah. 20. Right. Hopefully we'll have enough. Did order some, but we shall see. So goes in here like this. Going to be putting front. What we'll probably do today is get to the point where we are potentially ready for belts on everything. I might, when I do the belts for other axes, when I might do the belts for the Z as well. But we'll see. See when we get there. So these are all the motors are the same. Yeah. So basically what that then looks like from the top, just the motor, got the connector coming out to the electronics bay, which will be the electronics bay. And then we could adjust the pulley. We just take the foot off. So if we need to adjust it, we will. Otherwise, we'll leave it where it is. Basically, just repeat that process for another pulley. And these are 20 tooth pulleys. I know the BOM, or at least GitHub, suggests 16 tooth pulleys. Don't know. I don't think there's any reason for that, but it's just a case of making sure that the firmware is correct for the pulley that you use. So yeah, just do the same thing again basically. So we're having it way around. We'll put it in and just sort of line it up by eye. Roughly about there. I've slightly moved it a bit. So yeah, just tighten those up. Four more those, which leaves us at 4. So hopefully that's enough rear. So this one in. The front actually let's just tighten these up first. Okay, so that's the front ones in. And these actually do have covers that go over the front. I won't put on now, but there's some covers on there. Sort of stop you from playing around with it, basically. So let's do the rear one. Now I think I would assume that this goes the other way. What I'm going to do is take off my extension piece. Like that. So you can see if you wanted to use a longer motor in the back, you'd have to just modify the back to suit that. I'm just going to try and look down and see roughly where. So I think, excuse me, back motor pulley will put the other way around. So I'm just going to take a quick break for a second, just to take my take my hoodie off and have. I'll be back in a second. Okay, getting a little bit warm here. So, yep. So I'm going to put the rear pulley on. I'm going to put this other way round from the front ones. So speaking of firmware, what goes into the firmware, or the config I should say, not the firmware. I've started having a little look at that because this is going to be cam boards and iDEX and tri-leveling and everything. There's going to be a lot of sort of taking parts from various configs. So I've started having a look at that. I want to try and do as much of the firmware stuff as I can on stream. What I might do is, there's going to have obviously two tool heads, is do one on stream, one off, or I'll do one off stream, show you doing the other one on stream, just so you can see how you put the firmware and everything on them. But it's a relatively simple process. I just want to get a visual of where this is. Yep. Right. Start there, and if I have to adjust it later, I can. I want to see what size bolts. Definitely not going to be wanting to use 20 mil. Way too long. Right. Well, how long? So probably rates. Look. Want 10 mil. Find some. I reckon these might be right size. I put that. Turn this. Do with some slightly more zoomage. My camera setup. the rest of the in. Get the okay, so that's all the motors in. What I want to do now is get get basically get a part that goes on here. Box. I'll leave this off for now, just in case I need change anything. Oh. So these attach to the linear rails, and then also have yeah, so this goes this way round, and then also has the belt holder on the belt. Weird. On away from any manual. Purely because of their territory. So probably won't be doing today. So I actually will show you some of the other parts. But this is the screen mount for the screen that I'm using. So this is basically the one that's on Harry's hub with skirts. I just had to slightly modify it by putting a little hole in to accommodate the screen that I've got. That's the only change I made to that part. That's the bed mount, or a part that will go on the bed assembly. So I had originally printed the V0 display part, but we're not going to be build. Right, that's the rear belt thing. So I did actually go ahead and put in a lot of the heat inserts, because it's something that's done relatively easily and quickly. So this part will go here, and I'm trying to work out today. We'll leave the belts for do all of the belts. So this is the part. This is basically belt clamp. That goes onto like that. This part mounts to the front of the linear rail. I want to mount these because yeah, I want to get the I think I'm going to want to mount these first. I think. Want the M2 by 8, M2 by 6. Now the tricky part is that we're going to be putting a bearing this top part that's slightly interferes with these holes. So I think I'm going to put this on first, then try put the bearing in. So I think I want to try and somehow get these top ones in first. I think that needs to go on here, but also needs to. Wrong. Might be able to get it. Oh yeah, I have to go in. Got three pairs of hands to do. That top one. On slot. Once you have two in, it's be a little bit easier. That might ball end. That's two of four in there. So put the rest of those in. First. get. It has to go in at such an angle that might be easy to do is actually take the bottom ones out and do the top two first. Everything a little bit loose. Loosen this top one off a bit. Now for two. Try and get that top one in. Now got a little bit more. What we don't want to do is cross any threads, especially in these small M2 holes. So because the holes are partially covered, sort of have to get these first, have them so that you can put them in straight. If that makes sense. So it's a little bit tricky. So what I might do, sit on my chair a second. Still here. So I can do it at a more eye level. Like a couple of threads start. Before we start tightening it down. problem is, part might not be one of the overhangs. Bit of an issue. Pull up, file out, file the front, what will be the flat. File this part down a bit. Slightly better. Or 14. You have to go with 3 bolts and what I'm doing, bolt back. Time being, 3 bolts. 3 in. File 1. Three in, no problem. That top corner. Basically the same for the other. Same procedure. Bolt in top and right side. Enough. I'm okay. Once I've got that stuff, the bottom one. Again, not don't want to tighten parts because they'll crack. But enough to stop any wobble. Bottom corner. Go with 3 screws for now. I have a look at better orientation. That basically puts those in. Are the hopefully you can hear me, Richard. Been having a word with other people, so very quiet. Can increase. Find that this is quite low. Up jaw volume. But have you had to up your volume quite a lot, or I can increase? I thought I increased that down. So hopefully not too loud. But as I was just going to say, these are the get what they're the spherical bearings. These basically will go printed part, bed, frame. So you can see there's already one in the back. Then these ones go in one each side into the front. So I'm at risk of probably breaking apart here. Right, that went in nice and easy. Doubled it from where it was. I do find that my streams are maybe a little bit on the quiet side when I watch them back. So that's those in. We'll attach these for now. I think these have a right and a way wrong, right and a way wrong way to go in. I think they're basically identical. But we'll do belts when we do all of the belts, I think. Go in front, so they're probably when my camera doesn't want to be autofocus when it's being used the way I'm using it. I have to doing it. Should have put these. Oh, put these in here. What this bolt is. Basically because I didn't. So I've got a sheet of red perspex, not quite the right shade. So that's why I didn't go for red. And I didn't really want to do. Basically, I just thought it would be cool to thought it would be just be cool to be able to see all of the electronics because I'll have a clear deck panel as well. And I had some clear, so I just used. I guess I used what I had rather than having to. Did actually email someone, company, who I buy my acrylic from, and said, what color code is this perspex? But they never got back to me. Because acrylic or perspex do tell you color codes, order from them or just on their website it tells you. But where I buy my acrylic from, they haven't put it on there, so I don't know if the one I'm buying is the right color, basically. Now, having put these motors in, oh, so let's stay there where we are with that. Let me get the thing I'm going to use to put the electronics on. So I showed you earlier the DIN rail. So the idea is with these modified parts, and I've already again modified them again, so I might have to reprint them. But what these will basically do, we put the DIN rail into this clip. You sort of have to bend it a bit to get it in, because DIN rails are never the same shape and size. So we put these in. Right way, yeah. Go in here. Then the plan is to put this here. This attaches to the sides. So say we're going to go, yeah, reverse electronics. So that, let's actually try it, because I think I'm going to need to adjust this again, because of these nuts that I've got in here. Let's try and find. Maybe just get one in each side, just so I can give these. So roughly. Roughly, yeah. We have DIN rail at the bottom. Obviously, your normal DIN rail mounts, then clip on. I'm just wondering if it's too high. So what I'm going to do, biggest thing that's going to go in the bottom here is going to be the Super 8 control board. The issue is not, so I think we've got room for it to go in for sure. What we might have to do is bring these forward, and then look at how the bed mounts fit, because there's a bias one way or the other, I think. That's not that way. what we might have to do is have the board basically in between motors at the front. Put these on. Sort of gone away from what I was. Well, I think I've done everything I was going to do. Now just sort of about. So we're going to have the power supply on the back. We're going to have one of those slimline ones. That will go on the back, and then I was going to put the control board and that in the front. Now, you know, do need to go that way. But when it's on there, what I might do is change, try and find board mount or make one. These types of rail mounts, I really like these. These ones, basically, you if I tip up a bit, then you basically push like a living hinge type thing. Physically depress that printed geometry. That's Eucalyp. The advantage of these ones that can just go horizontally rather than having to go vertically to pull up your DIN clip. If I put that on there, these are a bit loose at the moment. Tighten these down. Actually go, they end up going quite far forward. Go there. Enough room there to tie, hope. Put those at the front. Tighten these. I can get a rough idea of where to go. So if that board is sort of roughly there, then I've made these shorter. But I've made these so that the 3mm panel can basically sit on top of these. So there's enough room. The drivers won't go that high. So that should be roughly where it will go. High over there will go hopefully there. Like that. Just about misses that motor. Not really, but that's roughly. So basically stuff will sit in the front. Then you'll have the clear panel on top. I haven't cut it yet, but use the stand-in. These would have to be, the only thing I'm not sure about is the belts. Might have to go in angle. Bed at the top maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure at the moment if that's going to be entirely possible how I want to do it, but sort of go something. Yeah, power supply on the back. Just wondering. We'll have to see. Basically, might have to go. So these would probably be at the top, right? Let's put a top the down. You can have belts coming up here. Might have to go up. I don't know. Might work, it might not. Yeah, I don't really like these sorts of thin mount. That's the only problem. Like the pushy one. Might try and find some different mounting options. Yeah, and then sort of the idea. And then we'll have control board, power supply, control board, pi, bottom, power supply, D, back. That should all work, I think. So got a lot of things done today, basically, to make it look more printer. Is the rear heavy? Yes, but it's evened out a little bit with the motors now in the front. Before it was rear top heavy, but now we've got some weight in the bottom as well. There is still, I mean, depends where you pick it up, but like if you picked it up at the front, obviously, but it's getting more balanced. I do like the way it's like that, and now because I made these filler pieces match sides of the screen mount, looks well like one solid piece. This raised up enough. There's nothing going to be behind it, so we should be okay to have the board right at the front. But yeah. So I think that probably where I'm going to leave it for today. I've done the idlers, I've done some of the Z part called exact. So I think what we'll do the next So this, so Waveshare is a brand, but hang on, so Waveshare is brand, but it's not a Waveshare. It's a 3 point. A 3.2, whatever the size screen is, small touch screen. What? 4.3. 4.3 Waveshare screen. So yeah, that will sit on the front. Yeah. This was like really, not really cheap, but it was a lot cheaper than the Waveshare one. The only thing I had to do is slightly modify the mount, because this has got a button to control the brightness. So I just modified the front part hole. Yeah. So we've done idlers. We've put we've done all the, basically finished off the skirts and feet. I've got the side parts. That was what I was worried about. The mount interferes with the so I might have to do a little bit of adjustment there to get that to work. I think basically, and then these side bits will go on. Even try and have them stepped out a bit. But yeah. So we've done most of the skirts. Put some motors on, idlers on. So what we can do next, we'll pick up the Voron manual, do our X-axis, then we can actually run all of the belts at the same time. I think. So that will be quite a mammoth task. There's a lot of belts, all got to go. Might have to think about which order to put. But I think X-axis belts will be our next stream. And like I said, I might try and do one during the week so that I can maybe get this going a bit quicker. Midweek and then weekend, we'll see what the situation is. Yeah, really happy with how that's starting to look. Starting to look a bit more like a printer. I'll have to try and I'll try and work on CAD to see if I can get that panel to work. Yeah, it should work. I need to make something for the panel to sit on at the back and maybe the front. Have some support, but that should work. So I think I'm going to call it there, about 2.5 hours ish. I can think. Say. Like I say, I've been looking at the firmware. Actually, could show you LEDs that I soldered up. So there's a little jig on the Dragon Burner website, GitHub, to get the right spacing. It doesn't really tell you the length of the wire, so I'm hoping that the lengths of the wires that I chose will be the right length. And then this is the sequin one that was, what's a polite way of saying right bugger to wire up, because it's like the button ones has input one side, output the other. These ones have only got 4 pads, so in and out are on opposite sides, or no, ground and power on opposite. It's complicated, so I did it off stream just so that I could concentrate more on it. They do work. I've tested them, so that's a bonus. So they're ready to go on full heads when we stage. Yeah, I think we're good there. So if there's anyone's got any questions, I don't know if Richard's here still. Yeah, I think we're going to call it a day. Hopefully, I'll see how I can do a midweek stream, what sort of time that will be. I might need to try and do a little bit of mock-up first to make sure everything's work, and make sure I've got everything. Yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. So, yep, Richard's still here, and I'm now going. So, catch you soon. Yep, thank you, Richard. Thanks for stopping along. Thank you, Scott, also who came and stopped along. And I'll see you next time. So.